And that's what climate change is about. It is literally, not figuratively, a clear and present danger.
We are in the beginning of a mass extinction.
The ability of CO2 to do the heavy work of creating a climate catastrophe is almost nil at this point.
The price of oil has been artificially elevated to the point of insanity.
That's not how you power a modern industrial system.
The ultimate goal of this renewable energy, plan is to reach the exact same point that we're at now.
You know who's tried that? Germany. 7 straight days of no wind for Germany. Their factories are shutting down.
They really do act like weather didn't happen prior to 1910.
Today is Friday.
That's right, Greta. It is Friday, and this is our own personal Friday protest, Climate Change Roundtable, number 98, Climate Catch-Up. I'm your host, Anthony Watts, Senior Fellow for Environment and Climate at the Heartland Institute. Joining me today, we have our usual panelists, Dr. H. Sterling Burnett, Director of the Arthur B. Robinson Center, and we have founder of JunkScience.com, Steve Milloy, who will be joining us to cover all the stories we missed while Michael Mann wasted everybody's time in court. Linnea is not with us today. She's on special assignment. Welcome, guys.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Good to be back.
Yep, it is. And we're man-free this week. All right. So,
yeah, not really. I was assaulted by a man op-ed in the New York Times.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, on this channel, at least, we're man-free.
Okay.
All right. So let's start off with the things we usually start off with when we're not worrying about Michael Mann and his ego. Let's look at some of the crazy climate news. Well, this one's a biggie. Wind fails again. Eversource exits the wind business, reports a massive loss in the billions, as Carl Sagan would say, billions and billions. Like all these wind energy companies, they make these grand plans, they put these things up, and then, hey, wait a minute, they're not producing worth a darn, and it costs more than we thought, and they're breaking down. It just seems to me like they are completely, they're getting out of the wind business, right?
And this is just the latest in a string of these. This is not like the first one. This is,
right,
the umpteenth one. None of these companies are doing well. They're all struggling with inflation and the supply chain problems and just the bad economics of wind energy. So we're going to see a lot more of this. I think.
It couldn't happen to a more smarmy industry. This entire industry, even more than onshore wind, but certainly the offshore wind industry, it would not exist but for government mandates, funding, and support. It couldn't get through the environmental reviews without government waiving all sorts of rules or ignoring their own laws. It couldn't get through, it wouldn't be drawn into the energy system, electric supply, because it's unreliable and the most expensive source outside of batteries. It just makes no sense whatsoever. It would not exist. This is solely a creature of the elitist and big government.
Yeah. And of course, you got to throw in that it really there's no point to it. It's not going to improve the weather or affect the weather or, much less the climate. It's just expensive electricity to, make a point. And I'm not quite sure what the point is. It's just, it's destroying our grid. It's going to make energy cost more. The whole, it's like everything green, just it backfires to reduce our standard of living.
Well, it does.
Right.
It does affect one thing. It does affect is it affects the wind speeds around those turbines. Downwind turbines get less wind, and it affects the ecosystem around the farms.
Yeah, that's true.
It churns up the water. It reduces the oxygen levels, which of course is great for aquatic wildlife. Fish love it when they can't breathe, and whales that prey on these things love it. And of course, they're in whale transit, migration routes. Just one more hazard for endangered whales. So it has an impact. It has an impact on our pocketbooks. It has an impact on the ecosystem. It just has no impact on climate change.
Yeah. Well, I can't imagine any other industry being allowed to operate where the government has permitted them to wipe out twice as many of an endangered species, and I'm talking about the North Atlantic right whale, as are thought to exist. I mean, where else on the planet can you do that? If it was ExxonMobil asking to do that, would the Biden administration allow that? No, but if it's offshore wind, it's okay.
Oh, well, no, look, onshore wind and onshore solar doing the same thing, right? If you're a desert tortoise, your friend is not big solar out west.
Nope,
if you are a protected golden eagle, hawk, bald eagle, your friends are not wind farms. And if you're a endangered bat, right? Yeah. So, I mean, the government has decided it's okay for these guys to be big killers. That's what they are. They're not. It's not a few animals that are being knocked off here. It's hundreds being knocked off, and no other industry would get that way.
And I just got to point out the Orwellian aspect of this. Environmentalism started off with, banning DDT to save the bald eagle. Then in 1973, it was save the whales, and now it's who cares about the eagles and who cares about the whales.
Right. Well, it's just,
Farragut said,
I can say this is all just more proof positive that wind blows. All right, let's move on to the next one. This one really blows. It's weird too. This is from the Wall Street Journal. And, when you look at the photo here on the top of this thing, well, I guess we can't. Is there a photo in there we can see, Andy? Anyway, they have these giant things that are pushing stuff up into the sky. It's like these generator guns. There they are. There they are, right there. Yeah. Look at that. Now, Jim Lakely, our vice president of communications, commented on our private channel the other day. Isn't this the kind of technology that supervillains use? Seriously, they're trying to cool the planet. Lex Luthor's generating giant streams of cooling things.
Is that SO2? Is that sulfur dioxide and particulates that they're shooting up there to try and block the sun? I think so.
Some sort of sulfate, yeah.
Yeah, and so let's talk about that. First, Jim is right. My first thought when I heard this was, I don't know if you remember, there was a movie with Charlie Sheen and Ron Livingston a few years back, where the aliens were terraforming the Earth. So when they came down, and there were people on Earth working with them because they wanted to be the overseers of the new plantation, as opposed to part of the herd to be harvested. And so now these mad scientists, people wonder why science is getting such disrepute. These mad scientists are pumping what the EPA labels pollutants into the atmosphere. Coal plants can't do this. Yeah. That causes acid rain. But when these guys do it from big pipes, just shooting it up into the atmosphere with no other redeeming, virtue. It's not like they're providing power for anybody. Now they're just polluting. And when acid rain comes back, what are they going to say? Well, we didn't care about whales. We didn't care about eagles. Now we don't care about acid rain.
Well, so I don't know if you guys saw this week, but or maybe it was last week. The trial just confused me time-wise. There was a story, I believe it was in the New York Times, about now they're thinking about putting in space like 750,000 miles from Earth a giant parasol to block out the sun as well. So, all of life depends on the sun. And of course, the Greens want to blot it out. It's unbelievable.
And when that parasol falls out of orbit, who is going to be underneath it when it crashes?
Well, it's going to be a long ways away.
Yeah, it's just more proof that geoengineering blows.
Yeah.
All right. The next crazy climate news. Climate activists ruined the display of the U.S. Constitution in the rotunda of the National Archives in Washington, D.C. They poured red powder all over themselves. Meanwhile, security guard just standing around. Watch this video. Should be able to press play or not. No, I guess not. Anyway, so
Stop motion.
here's these two idiots after they've dumped powder all over themselves on the U.S. Constitution, and those super duper security guards are just standing there watching. There we go. Watch this.
They walked away. I mean, there's a security guard walking away. The other two are just standing there.
Yeah.
I wonder what they're protecting.
I don't know. That's some heavy duty policing right there.
That's really, it's unbelievable.
But at least they're wearing their masks. So,
yeah.
Whatever that means, they're wearing their masks, but they're not protecting anything. They're specifically there to keep people from touching even the glass. And instead they let someone pour pink all over it. Well, I can't decide what to do. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
Damn security guard. Provide security.
Yeah. Yeah. So if these guys went in there with MAGA hats, started distributing, they go straight to jail, right? They'd be executed right there. They'd be shot.
Well, someone, I saw a post. I won't say who said it, but it's like, why don't we have snipers in the Capitol to protect the Constitution? The first couple of them get shot. That doesn't happen again.
No, but this is just the latest line in this insanity, right? I mean, the Mona Lisa, there's, innumerable artworks that have been sabotaged. These people are just, I call them climate mental patients because, people that do pointless stuff like that or glue themselves to road or attach themselves to trains or stand in front of cars, to the point where, they allow angry motorists to grab them by the hair and pull them off the road while they do. I mean, these people belong in institutions.
Well, now that's funny. Someone just put,
there we go. Look at this guy. They're doing photo ops now.
Yeah. Someone wrote, if that was Moscow, the guards would have handled this a bit differently. Yeah. Can you imagine somebody going up to Lenin's tomb to pour pink all over it and what would have happened there? Months later, they would have been, they would have either mysteriously fallen out of a high window somewhere or been in prison and died of disease like Putin's nemesis Navalny.
No, I just, and there's going to be no end to this. I mean,
because there's no consequences.
Well, Greta just had a criminal trial in London, which she wore fossil fuels to, by the way, if you saw the pictures. And she was on trial because she disobeyed police orders. She was protesting illegally, and the judge just let her off.
Yeah. So, interestingly enough, I've been there to see the Constitution. I've stood right there. And I got to tell you this, these fools had no idea what they were up against in terms of, they really didn't damage the Constitution. They just made themselves look stupid because the Constitution, the pages are protected by glass like this thick. All right. Not only that particular set of display in that block of granite there is actually movable. In the case of an attack on the Capitol or a nuclear war, the whole Constitution display goes down in an elevator, several stories underground, and into a safe vault, right? And they can activate that at the push of a button. So these idiot climate protesters didn't accomplish anything. They haven't damaged the Constitution. They just made themselves look stupid, as these climate protesters do.
And yet they didn't push the button.
Huh?
And yet they didn't push the button, lower the Constitution with them standing around and into the airless safe and leave them there for a couple of days. That
I don't know.
So the National Archivist said that they were going to prosecute these people to the full extent of the law. We'll see if that happens.
I hope they do.
Even if they prosecute it, the question is, will a judge do anything to them? They prosecuted Greta. They prosecuted.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Right?
These people will be let off with a slap of the wrist, or just let off.
Yeah. Anyway, it's more proof positive that climate activists blow. All right.
That's Anthony's word for the day.
All right, I'm going to break my promise earlier and break the man-free zone. I'm sorry, I really am. But we got to talk about this particular tweet from Chris Marks, who is highlighting this article in Science. It's an op-ed from the editor-in-chief. Basically, March is saying Science Magazine has this brand new editorial out essentially saying that scientists and their research findings are a protected class that can't be criticized by members of the general public. Oh, gosh. Yeah, really, seriously. No, you can't criticize climate science because we're special.
That's always good. Good plan is not to be allowed to criticize science and scientists. I'm sure that Mengele wishes, that he had that protection when his scientific endeavors were going on.
Well, at the risk of irritating the man, I'm going to deny that he is a climate scientist. I just deny that. Sorry. I mean, there's nothing that he does that is science.
Yeah. Anyway, I've published a couple of peer-reviewed papers. So does that make me a climate scientist? Am I allowed to criticize them now? Probably not, because I'm not the right kind of climate scientist.
Yeah.
Anyway, finally, before we get into anything else, we've got this video from Facebook. Before we get into the climate fact check, we have this video from Facebook. This is incredible. A car that is still burning underwater. It's a Tesla, yes. It fell into the lake somehow, and it's still burning. Now, funny thing is, Jim Lakely, who always comes up with these great quips, says, if EVs were made mandatory, it would be justified to ban them as too hazardous for common use based on this. It's crazy. Lithium burns underwater.
Wow, that's really something. Another success story.
Right.
This is probably one of those driverless EVs that didn't stop or something.
Well, the thing about EVs is that there's no good news about EVs. No one likes them. They're not really selling. They do stuff like this. There's worse coming. The more EVs we have, the more disasters we're going to see.
They're destroying the roads. They're destroying parking garages.
Right. The insurers don't like. I mean, there's no good news, yet people are still trying to push this stuff.
They're built with slave and child labor. Yeah. There's nothing good to recommend these things.
No, it's really a Soviet idea, right? And they're determined to make it work.
Except for one thing. When the Soviets put something on the shelves, even if nobody needed it, they went and got it as fast as they could because they could trade it. Well, what we're putting on the shelves is shoes this week. Everybody, even the wrong size, we grab as much shoes as we can because we can trade them. We can barter them later. No one's rushing out and getting these EVs when they're.
This stuff just gives technology a bad name. Technology, when I was growing up, was a great thing. It made life better. You could do more. It made things cheaper. It was fun. It was useful. EVs and this green stuff are none of that. Nothing that we're really, developing now as technology is really helping us out at all.
Where's Ralph Nader when you need him? God.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I never thought I'd say that, but seriously.
Pyrotechnic at any speed.
Unsafe at no speed.
That's the new book from Ralph Nader. Well, it's just more proof positive that lithium batteries blow. All right. All right, so let's get on to our main topics. Hey, there's one right now blowing up.
I hope that's not a school bus.
No, that's a metro.
Yeah,
the metro. Okay.
Well, my favorite video is still the line of German buses just catch fire.
And it burns, the ring of fire. Yeah. All right, let's get into our January climate fact check. We do this every month now. This is something that Steve puts together. And basically, he takes the media to task and all of their claims. Sometimes he takes the science to task. Although you are not allowed to criticize climate scientists anymore, Steve.
Well, the good news is there's no such thing as a climate scientist, so we're all set.
Yeah. So, Steve, why don't you lead through this and cover the topics? Andy, scroll as necessary.
Yeah, I don't have it memorized. Yeah,
gosh.
So I just, I want to start out, we're in this El Nino. The El Nino has caused warming. And of course, the activists are all up. They're all excited about this because the Earth is finally warming after yet another hiatus. And so I just want to start out pointing out that we have this really weird pattern, and warming occurs stepwise, and only the step only happens when there's an El Nino, and then temperatures kind of flitter down until there's another El Nino. We just happen to be in this string of stronger El Ninos that keep moving things up. So if you look at the real-time surface station record in comparison, last year was not the hottest year. It was a relatively warmer year, but there's nothing going on. Europe, there was one of these temperature claims in Europe, which is I think in Sicily, a high of 119 degrees, supposed to be global warming. Of course, 2 years later, with more emissions and during the hottest year, this part of Sicily was 30 degrees cooler. So where's the warming?
Potholes.
Another great story, potholes caused by climate change. You read the article, you find out the reason that there's potholes is because Scotland has cut its road budget by 97.5%.
Gosh.
Emperor penguins, we keep hearing about how, these species are on the verge of extinction. I guess it's really first started with a spotted owl in the 1980s. And as it turns out, the spotted owl wasn't endangered. Spotted owl had just moved, chased out by another type of owl. Here in the Antarctic, they don't even know where all the penguin colonies are. They discovered new penguin colonies, yet they're claiming that penguins are going extinct. So more nonsense. Glaciers. What was this one?
All right.
Oh yeah.
Let's
You want to jump in?
I want to say something about the penguins. So the penguins are endemic. I mean, are sort of in this case the poster child for everything wrong with claims about endangered species. The fact is, we don't know how many species are on Earth within an order of magnitude. We don't know how many subpopulations there are for most of the species on Earth. And here's one where they had these huge colonies of penguins that no one even knew about.
Yep.
I mean, they were right there, but no one knew about them. And it was like, well, if a colony of penguins exists on the ice floe and no one recognizes it, does it exist? Well, evidently not for climate alarmists who say the penguins are going extinct. Well, oops, there you go. But this is not rare. This happens a lot.
It's quite possible that the penguins just relocated themselves.
So they're
not even really new.
They're climate immigrants. They're being forced to. I've been wrong.
Yeah.
So enough for the climate fact check. Let's go on to our next topic. Popular Mechanics has been one of my favorite magazines through the years, and today is no exception because they pointed out something that's really important. Oops, scientists may have miscalculated our global warming timeline. Why? Well, we've exceeded 1.5 degrees centigrade. That was the thing they put in the Paris Climate Conference back in 2015, saying we must limit it to below 1.5 degrees centigrade for the planet, or terrible things will happen, right? Disasters, all kinds of stuff. Guess what? We've exceeded it. Didn't happen. No disaster, no doom, none of that stuff.
Good evidence we exceeded it even before this article claims we exceeded it. But, I keep looking out my window for those people running in heavy coats, claiming, like the South Park scene where it's global warming, it's coming, and the big shadows looming over them as they run down the street. I keep looking for that disaster, but I don't see it.
Yeah.
Well, you won't find it. There is none.
Yeah. Lost in all this is that all these, climate targets, 1.5C, 2C, all just made up.
Yep.
If you hadn't figured that out on your own, it was in Climate Gate. Phil Jones asked, where did the 2C target come from? He goes, I don't know. It just plucked out of thin air.
Well, and that's what they admitted in this article, right? They say, well, yeah, it was a political choice. But then they interview the scientist. He says, well, that's true, but every 1/10 of a degree counts. We can't measure 1/10 of a degree, but everyone counts.
Yeah. Well, so they're going to be really disappointed when the El Nino we're in now ends, and we go into La Nina, and there will be more emissions but less temperature.
El Nino right now is on its way out. If you go to whatsupwiththat.com, you'll see that over on the right sidebar, we have our El Nino watch graphic, and it is fading. And it looks like we'll be into either La Nada conditions or La Nina conditions toward the middle to later part of the year. And so we're, if you scroll down there, Andy, you'll see it. Scroll down a little further. Keep going, buddy. Keep going. Keep going. There it is. See that graphic there onto the right sidebar? Expand that, and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's just not happening. So anyway, point is that
we need some good mockumentarians to produce a song called "Every 1/10 of a Degree is Sacred." Just straight from the meaning of life, right?
Yeah, but it's every 1/10 of a degree, right?
Yeah, every 1/10 of a degree. Yeah,
yeah.
They could dress as thermometers and do the back and forth. Every 1/10 of a degree is saved.
Alrighty. So while we're talking about the ocean and hotness and all that other stuff, supposedly global warming is going to cause the ocean currents to collapse. The AMOC, the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation. And they've been talking about this for years. But the problem is these scientists, these uncriticizable climate scientists, don't seem to talk amongst themselves. And so we see one year we have a story about the AMOC is going to collapse. No. Next year or next month, AMOC is going to speed up. And then after that, oh no, it's going to collapse again. And so we're up to like number 22 in a series now over the last couple of months or a couple of years. And we have this article on ocean currents to collapse again, number 22 in a series. If we can bring that up, Andy. There it is. So the whole thing is fake news. CNN ran this article, and I eviscerated it. Of course, eviscerating CNN is like shooting fish in a barrel. It's not hard. They don't do any science there. They're just all about opinion and quoting expert, Yeah. But here's the thing. They're talking about this study in Science Advances, right? And the study in Science Advances makes a couple of critical omissions. And they miss the fact, they don't put this in the abstract, and CNN completely missed it. And if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see this figure 2 further down the net. And figure 2 shows this graph. You see that? Now, this is the crux of the whole thing. The way the CNN article and other media people framed this is that AMOC collapse is right around the corner. No. In the model that they produced, the tipping point that causes the collapse is 1,758 years in the future, in the year 3782 AD. Boy. Really? Well, seriously.
Well, I hate to curse my 50 or 60 generations great-great-grandchildren with that future.
Yeah.
I think I think there were some British climate scientists who we might disagree with, but they jumped on this error and just the crazy assumptions that went into the study right away. I mean, this study came out last Thursday, I believe. Friday, in the Telegraph, there was an article of just sort of conventional climate scientists taking this down. So,
well,
right.
Yeah. So they've taken it down, and there's other problems. But it seemed to me the main problem is the gullibility or the collusion of the mainstream media in this climate hype, because few issues highlight this more than the claims about the AMOC. Because as Anthony rightly pointed out, it's not just every other year they've got a different direction it's going. It's not just they're saying it's going to speed up. They say we've been measuring it, it's speeding up. We've been measuring it, it's slowing down. And it's not just every other year they change their tune. It's sometimes within 6 months or a couple of months of each other, a new report comes out. And everyone is reported uncritically. So the press picks up one, not noticing, not pointing out that, well, yeah, 2 months ago we said just the opposite. They can't both be happening at the same time. But of course, the solution, once again, is always the same. Climate change, the cause is always the same, and the solution. Climate change is causing it. Humans are causing it. And the solution is big government taking away your freedoms for the speed up. If it's slowing down, well, climate change is causing it. Humans are causing it. And the solution is big government taking away your freedoms to solve it.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's a bonus stupid in all of this, right? Now, these are uncriticizable climate scientists, right? So
yeah, that's right.
Now,
I forgot.
Do they blow?
my mistake. I can't criticize them.
All righty. So, math is hard. Science is hard. And media doesn't understand either. But, simple math often is the most revealing thing. And that's one of the things I did in this article. In addition to the fact that the tipping point is 1,758 years in the future. No, not around the corner, not going to happen next year or next decade. Nope, not a threat to us all. Further down, I discovered when you look at the data that they used for goosing this model, they had this climate model to make this graph, right? To get this thing to collapse 1,758 years in the future, what did they do? They kept adding fresh water.
Right.
Well, apparently the model wasn't cooperating because once they got past all of the fresh water available by the melting ice in Greenland, the whole of Greenland, it didn't cause it to collapse. Nope. They had to keep pushing it. They added 5 times the amount of water, fresh water coming from Greenland, 5 times the ice volume before it would collapse. Something that's impossible. I mean, this is science? Yikes.
Yes.
You said it
It's
just like Thomas Dolby. Yes, science.
Science, right.
Yeah, but these people are uncriticizable.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go on to the New York Times. They conflate weather with climate change again. It's like number 7,842 in a series. This is a story by, I believe this was by Linnea, yeah. And so basically they're claiming that coastal cities are bracing for climate change, heavy rainfall, atmospheric rivers, so forth and so on. But, it's just not happening. And in fact, when you look at what the IPCC says, they don't say flooding is getting worse due to climate change. They absolutely say it has not emerged. And yet we have op-eds going in the New York Times saying that it is getting worse, but they don't cite any data. They just cite opinion, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, Steve.
No, so I think it's fascinating piece here. So sea level rise has been constant basically since the mid 19th century. On the East Coast, cities are to the extent they're sinking. I mean, they're sinking for a variety of reasons: natural subsidence, groundwater withdrawal. The land use doesn't help often. Tony Heller had a fascinating video about NOAA's use of satellites to measure sea level to start with, and I think the bottom line was the error range was as large as the estimated sea level rise. So it's all not no one really knows what's going on anywhere.
Yeah, you mentioned some of them. Compaction. So you load a bunch of heavy concrete and steel and asphalt on top of swampy ground, and then you're surprised when it sinks. You drain the swamps, and then surprise when the water rises, right? And you drain the aquifer beneath your feet, and are surprised when when holes open up with the heavy stuff on top of it. And then, rather than blame a lot of these things are human caused, right? I mean, we're the ones that drain the swamps. We're the ones that are draining the aquifers. We're the ones that are putting heavy infrastructure on top of unstable soil. So that's human, but it has nothing to do with CO2 emissions causing a rise in sea levels.
Yeah, there was a really interesting book that came out maybe a couple of years ago. It's called Bubble in the Sun, and it's about the development of South Florida and how, 100 swamp. And then they came in and just, brought fill in. Miami Beach was like a, mangrove swamp, and they just brought in fill. And so, it was great for 100 years, but now nature's starting to reclaim it.
Yeah, well, look at this. Think about this. I've been to Boston several times. Wonderful city to visit, a lot of history, but a large part of it is built on fill.
Yeah.
The Boston Harbor, the harbor itself, the water used to be much bigger than it is today because they dumped fill along the harbor and built stuff all over it. Yeah. So, like you say, the seas are rising. But they're nowhere near. If you look at old maps of Boston, entire neighborhoods are where water used to be.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention this. There was a study that just came out a few weeks ago about Greenland melting, and it was, the study was like, oh, there's more melting going on in Greenland than we had originally estimated, and so over the past 40 years. But then, if you read the whole study, you actually find out that none of this melting has contributed to sea level rise. So, well, if that didn't, what does? I don't know.
It melts and refreezes, so it never reaches the sea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's back to the assumption that I guess their assumption is that the planet and life and environment and climate are totally static, but for CO2, the 0.04% in the atmosphere and the increments that are added every year just completely throw everything out of whack.
And the other thing they seem to count as static for some just completely reason that befuddles me is that humans don't respond to changes in the environment. That, oh my gosh, the sea levels rise, we'll just be flooded. I'll just sit here and watch the water rise above my feet, as opposed to we'll do what, say, the Dutch have done, the Netherlands have done for hundreds of years, an entire country below sea level rise. Yes. That still has a landmass.
Fighter Z.
So look, we respond, and the technology is much better today than when the Dutch started building windmills and dikes. And we can respond to this. And fortunately, as Anthony's pointed out, that study says we have 1,700 years to figure it out.
Right.
I'm glad we got that warning. Well,
I don't know if you saw this. The Royal Navy is getting ahead of the curve. They're introducing mandatory climate training for all sailors. Because what will you do in the higher seas?
Yeah. Anyway, you pointed out something about climate change being static. I submit that most of what the media produces about climate change is static.
Static. Yeah, different kind of static, right?
Yeah. All right. Next story. Los Angeles Times. Nope. They're not supercharging the latest winter storm. Climate change is not supercharging it. This is another story I wrote for Climate Realism, and I'm pretty proud of this one. Of course, I'm proud of most of my stories. Occasionally I make a lemon, but it happens. But they're picking on one storm. And this is that whole weather versus climate thing that the media can't seem to figure out. Climate is an average of weather over 30 years. This is a definition that is embraced by the World Meteorological Organization, and every meteorologist out there understands this, except media doesn't understand it. So they're saying, this one storm, climate change just jumped out and goosed it, made it stronger. Nope, just not there.
To be fair, that storm, once again, this is one of those things where even if it was climate change, they're not talking about the benefits of that storm, right? Lake Shasta, up to and above its levels, it gained 27 feet of water. All the lakes in California, even Lake Mead is now higher than it's been in 3 years. Yeah. The lake that was about to be disappeared is higher than it has been in 3 years. So there are benefits of weather conditions, not just bad things happen.
Well, and this is just one article out of many I've seen this winter, where El Nino is clearly the driver of whatever is happening, and everyone knows it's El Nino, and El Nino is credited with causing whatever, but then they just tack on climate change because otherwise no one will care.
Yeah. So one of the most important rebuttals you can make is the fact that the IPCC in this particular table here, and I've used this table a number of times because it's the definition. This is a table that they put together and they put in their latest report. And this comes from page 90, chapter 12 of the UN IPCC Sixth Assessment Report, where they talk about the emergence of climate impact drivers. Now, I've highlighted a couple of points there with yellow. Now, the Los Angeles Times claims that there was heavy precipitation because climate change goosed this atmospheric river. Well, the IPCC says it's not happening in our historical period. It's not happening by 2050. It might happen past 2050. Maybe. Same thing with the marine heat wave. Los Angeles Times says the marine heat wave out in the Pacific goosed the atmospheric river, made it stronger, made more precipitation because it evaporated more moisture. Well, marine heat waves are also not emerging during the current historical period. Not going to happen by 2050. Not going to happen by 2100. So in other words, like I was saying before, what these guys publish is just static. It's just junk.
You and your pesky adherence to the scientific method and data and stuff. God, if you just jettison that and get with it.
Get with the narrative, Ann.
Yeah. Someone, Ian, somebody scrolled up, had an interesting comment of another factor in sea level rise that I'm convinced no one has ever considered at all. All these ships and boats and everything that are put into the oceans, hundreds, thousands daily, they displace water. Are they causing an increase in sea level rise? I mean, we know that's a joke. The oceans are vast. But, when I have a party at my house and we have a pool party and everyone jumps in the pool, I know the water level rises there. And not because I'm so girthy, by the way.
Yeah, some displace more sea level than others.
Oh,
my goodness. Yeah, it's comical. Like I said earlier, it's like shooting fish in a barrel with CNN and LA Times. None of these people pay any attention to the science. They don't go and look at the paper or try to understand it. They just go with whatever the press release says. And if that press release says doom is on the horizon or climate change made this worse, they just uncritically accept it and parrot it like the idiots that they are. I mean, isn't it sad that, people like me and Sterling and Steve have to be the ones to actually go out and find the truth as opposed to journalism, which is supposed to be doing that?
Well, and the thing is, I mean, it's like you said, which I think is very true. It's like shooting fish in the barrel. You don't even have to try very hard to do this. I mean, I can take an article that has been in the Washington Post, New York Times, AP, wherever, they have worked on it for hours. I can do 2 Google searches and debunk it in 3 sentences. And
yeah.
I just,
that's what you need. We need a game show. I could debunk that claim in 2 sentences.
Yeah. And then when I point it out to whoever wrote the article, I get blocked.
Yeah. I don't even need the millions and millions of dollars from big oil that I supposedly have in order to debunk this stuff.
Though we'd take it. We don't need it, but we wouldn't be averse.
Feel free to insult you with your money.
Next story. The EU backs down on agricultural emissions after farmers' protest. Yep. The farmers decided we've had enough of this crap.
Yeah.
We're out there and we're going to protest and we are going to say no and hell no. Apparently that's behind a paywall, so that's okay.
And
basically describe what happened. The farmers started showing up en masse along the highways, invaded the parliamentary buildings. They hurled manure on the steps, all this kind of stuff. basically saying, we're not putting up with this anymore. And finally, the EU says, yeah, okay, and back down.
Yeah, it's country after country. Farmers join the movement. Shipping, some commercial fishermen join the movement. They blocked ports. They blocked roads and highways. They blocked the entrance to parliaments. This is in country after country. It's, I think it started in the Netherlands. Well, it started in France, but it had to do with the gas prices. It wasn't farmers then right away. The farmers joined other people on the gas prices. But then the Netherlands started it. They were trying to force them off their land, buy them. We're buying you out because we don't want farming here. The breadbasket of much of Europe. We don't want more farming because it's causing climate change. So we're going to buy you out. But with the money, you can't move anywhere else and become a farmer. That started there. They moved to other countries. The protests started, and the politicians were feeling the heat. Look, when people, just like with the climate protesters, when people can no longer travel to where they need or want to be, over time, those people who aren't part of the movement get very angry. You glue yourself to the street, they pull you off by the hair. And no one was going to move these tractors. So the public let their politicians know you won't be in office very much longer if you don't solve this problem. And the politicians seem to have, at least for now, heard the message and started backing off all the different policies that they were forcing.
Yeah. So what you just said, the politicians heard and are backing off. I don't know. I'm not so sanguine about it. For now. I think that the politicians, the farmers, they know it's winter. Farmers have less to do. So, they can afford to drive their tractors. I'm pretty sure that, normal politicians would get the message that, oh, this is unpopular. We need to do something else. But there's something very peculiar about leftists and, the climate arm. They just sort of double down on everything, and they look at your reaction. They don't take it as a reaction. They take it as, oh, we need to go around that person or think of something else. I mean, they're just going to keep doing what they're doing. And the farmers, cannot be lulled back to sleep or, think that they've really accomplished anything yet. They've got to do this all the time until the government changes.
Yeah, and it's the same process again and again and again. They keep coming up with, the left, even crazier restrictions or crazier ideas to save the planet that basically destroy personal liberty and destroy economic freedom and destroy capitalism, which seems to be one of their main goals. They want socialism more than capitalism. And so they keep trying this, and they keep getting smacked down.
I don't doubt that in their heart of hearts they haven't given up and that they won't try again. But the point is, I'm going to take small victories where we can get it.
Yeah.
And for now, these things are off the table. And I miss part of what you said, Steve. For some reason, my computer locked you up. But one of the things that happens in Europe that doesn't happen here, we have timed elections every 2 years. They can call elections. It's like if enough of the public disagrees, enough of Parliament disagrees, they can call a snap election, and the people in power are no longer in power.
Yeah.
And I think they're a little bit more responsive there to these things. And the farmers are a lot more organized there, and the labor groups are a lot more organized there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just going to say, this week I saw, Europe is trying to move ahead with 90% emissions cuts by 2040. And I would say that they're more committed to that than they are to making the farmers happy. Making the farmers happy is just a bump they have to get over, for their larger goal. I mean, they haven't given up their larger goal. 90% emissions cuts by 2040, there will be no farming.
Yeah. I think we need a bumper sticker that says, "Don't complain about climate change with your mouth full." All right. So
if you're not starving, thank a farmer in global warming. That's what the bumper sticker should say.
There you go. All right. Our final topic today, Hurricane Cat 6, to be or not to be. That is the question. There's been discussion for several years now, I think started around 2015 or so, that we need to have Cat 6 as a hurricane designation. And Andy, can you find that article on Cat 6? Nope, not that one. Anyway, so the idea is that, you know, the Saffir-Simpson scale is not good enough anymore. No. We can't just say anything above a certain strength is Cat 5. We need a new super duper, super alarming Cat 6 for that top 5% of hurricanes that we've observed that we couldn't observe, you know, 50 or so years ago when the scale was first created. I don't even know how long back it goes, but it's been a long time. We couldn't observe those kinds of winds because we didn't have satellite. We didn't have radar. We didn't have airplanes that could fly into these things, right? So the scale was created well before technology advances. So technology advances, and oh no, there's super high winds, higher than what we thought they were going to be. And now we need a new designation for it because we have to be able to tell people how super scary this storm is that's bearing down on you.
It's kind of like Spinal Tap, where
that's what I wrote.
Nigel can turn his amplifier up to 11.
I wrote an article that cited that just this week. It was an American Thinker. I said, you know, when I saw that, my first thought was the guitarist of Spinal Tap's, you know, talking to the director, Rob Reiner, saying, look how different mine is. It goes to 11. And the director looks at him, he goes, well, why don't you just make 10 louder? And he looks befuddled and he looks back at him. He goes, no, mine goes to 11. It's the same thing. There's no evidence. First off, the whole premise is there were 3 hurricanes, not in the Atlantic Basin, by the way, in the Pacific, that have reached this level recently. By recently, they mean more than a decade of global warming ago. All the CO2 emissions, no more hurricanes like that. Now, there's some evidence that were hurricanes that were even stronger than that before we were measuring these things over the 200s. Anecdotal, documentary, but not measured because we didn't have the technology. But the whole point is there's no evidence. Look, if you're a stubborn person living in the Florida Keys or parts of Florida, and you don't leave because when a Cat 5 has been declared, someone's going to come to you and say, oh, well, now it's Cat 6. And you're going to say,
Sterling.
He's
and then they come back and they say, no, it's really a super secret, serious bad idea.
Yeah.
And well, if it's a super serious bad idea, you know, now I'm going to leave. Yeah. No, it's idiotic.
Yeah.
It's unnecessary. And they say, sorry, Steve.
No, this whole measurement thing is not really working out for us. I think it was the governor of Hong Kong a long time ago said, the last thing in the world you want is the government keeping statistics. And, you know, with climate, this is really, you know, coming to bite us in the rear end. I mean, not only there's a problem keeping the statistics, it's the actual statistics we have are not good enough. They have to make them up. And it's just becoming a real problem. We need a much more qualitative approach to everything.
The technology here, the amazing changes in technology in hurricane identification and monitoring. You know, I think they've saved a lot of lives. We have warning systems. Not everybody obeys them. Not everybody listens. But we have many fewer deaths now from hurricanes that are no stronger than there were before, and that's due to technology.
Yeah.
But the point is, Cat 6 ain't going to change that. It's just a climate scare, and there's a big debate in the scientific community.
Did we lose him? It's just, I think what Sterling was meant to say was, it's just drama. It's not science.
Yeah, no, there's no consensus in Cat 6. In fact, the active debate says this: people might start ignoring, you know, categories 3 and 4 if we add a Cat 6, because it's like, well, it's not Cat 5 or 6, so you know.
Look at what happened with Hurricane Katrina. They made all kinds of warnings, and people just sat there and ignored it and didn't leave those parishes, and then, you know, they're up on top of their flooded houses and so forth.
Right.
So, you know, is a Cat 6 going to make any difference to them? Doubtful. But I will say there's one real problem associated with warnings, and this happens in the Midwest a lot. People get warning fatigue. You know, so many thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings issued throughout the spring and the summer, they just get tired of hearing them and they tune them off, because it's just like, oh no, another one of those. Well, it didn't hit my house the last 150 times we had a tornado warning, so I'm not going to worry about it today. And that's the danger. They get acclimated to all these warnings and just start ignoring them. So, you're right. If they start pushing Cat 6, well, it's just a Cat 3. Well, not gonna worry about it.
Won't worry about that.
Yeah, I'm going to sit on my balcony and smoke, vape, right? If it's just a Cat 3. pour another drink and
Yeah. Meanwhile, you can be killed in a thunderstorm. So
yeah. I will say though, if they do Cat 6, it's likely that we will see the tornado categories F5 become an F6 because new technology will be able to measure even higher winds and tornadoes and so forth. And so they'll feel like the onus is on them to go to F6 now.
The tornado watchers will be like, oh, they got a Cat 6. I want an F6.
Just watch, it'll happen.
Yeah, but it's so superfluous. I mean, they've identified 3 storms in all of history that would have met that category.
Yeah. So there's the music. Apparently, we're out of here. We have been censored. All righty. So we don't have a whole lot of questions to cover, so we're going to wrap up a little early. I want to remind everyone to visit websites pertinent to this show. First of all, Steve Milloy's excellent junkscience.com, one of the oldest and best websites out there talking about, the craziness of climate science, which is not, you can't criticize it anymore. Your whole website's just toast now, right?
I know, it blows.
All right. And then, of course, visit climaterealism.com where we debunk the media daily. And, of course, climateataglance.com, which gives you references to fight back against some of this insanity. Energyattaglance.com, which also talks about some useful points to fight back about energy. And, of course, my website, whatsupwiththat.com, the biggest, baddest website on climate on the planet. There, I said it now. Okay, that's it. Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Sterling, for joining us. I'm Anthony Watts, Senior Fellow for Climate and Environment at the Heartland Institute, wishing you a great Friday and a fantastic weekend and a super Monday holiday. Bye-bye.